Hi, it's Jane. Thought I would update everybody on the eye situation. Um, I think I told you that Wednesday it started going south. It wasn't just what looked like the floater that was going on, but all of a sudden looked like it had several layers of floaters, and then it got real muddy um, and hard to see through. To the point where it was easier to close the one eye like this and do things. Um, but of course, by the time I got back to the doctor from my appointment that morning, they were closed because they're closed half a day. So, in the emergency rooms, they won't do anything. I mean, they just send you home, tell you, take your $200 or whatever it is for your emergency room copay, and you need to see the follow up with the eye doctor in the morning. I already knew that. Had that happen with someone else. So, all right, I'll just wait till morning. So I was there first thing, and they did fit me in first thing. And went through, and, they do the scan for the back of the eye, dilated the eye, but they couldn't really see anything. They couldn't get a scan at all, which is abnormal anyway. And that's the eye that I have that nevus in, that small, doctors called it a cyst before, whatever. A nevus is kind of like a freckle on the back of your eye. It's abnormal, but generally they just keep watching it because it can turn cancerous in the future. So they couldn't see anything, but he, did quite a few tests while I was there. And they did this one test that I was, kind of surprised at. And it's to test for color blindness. And I guess if you have issues with color blindness, this is how they determine it. But they have this book that in it has these round spots that have different colors. Like the primary color may be green, and then a background color in the background for numbers, and you're supposed to tell them what the number is. So with the right eye, I got 12 out of 12. The left eye, I got 1 out of 12. So he'd asked me, he said, have you ever had issues with color blindness before? And I said, no, not that I'm aware of. So anyway, he sent me on, referred me to a retina specialist, because they have the capability to do ultrasound. Plus, they have a scanning machine that can scan a little bit deeper, see the back of that eye. So I went from one to an hour away to another, sat there for the longest time. They did get me in, and I did all the scans and everything, then came back and did some other tests. And my favorite were the tests where they have you cover your right eye and see what you can see with your left eye. I couldn't hardly read any of those letters that they had up on the screen. I mean, we're talking letters like this big. I could not read them because I couldn't see through this eye, through everything. And he'd asked me what I would describe it as. I said, it's kind of like looking through a mud pie. I can see around it, but I can't see right where it's at. It's just very discolored and muddy looking. So come to find out, I do not have a detached retina. There's no signs of it. He did say that I had a bleed back there. He didn't see any active bleeding while he was, scanning and everything he was doing, especially with the ultrasound. But said that basically it was a bleed that's in the back of the eye, there's blood back there, and that's why they couldn't get a good scan at the other office, and why they had to do a second scan here so they could get past the blood to see it. So basically, it's a wait and watch right now. I'll be seeing every week for the next couple of weeks. He said basically it's a wait and see for it to absorb. If it doesn't get absorbed by the body or bleeding continues, then they would have to go in and, cauterize the bleed and remove the blood from back there at some later date. So, at least now I have a clue, right? The only other thing he did suggest is that I sleep like I would in a recliner, in a reclined position, head elevated, which, I kind of have done a little bit anyway, because of the, I got the ear pillow because the ear has those tender spots from sleeping better with the CPAP machines. So now when I sleep with that pillow, I have it on top of another pillow, and it kind of raises me up about probably like this. But he said he wants me up a little bit more like this. Thomas had a pillow that he used quite frequently. It's a set of pillows that'll raise me up, so I'm going to pull those out of deep storage and use those for the rest of the week. Couple of weeks, I guess. Let's hope I can stay asleep on them and don't roll off of them. I know me, I'll probably roll right off of them. But anyway, that's what's going on with the eye. So yeah, if you're praying type, I would appreciate continued prayers and that the blood would be absorbed and all taken care of so there wouldn't have to be a surgery. What else? I think that's it. And my first thought was, darn it, I can't even go to Joann's to look at yarn. Could have gone to, Michael's, but I was like, I'm not going to Michael's. I'm going to go home because I've been all day between the two doctors. So, came home, drinking the afternoon water, which is kiwi lime. I did ask him about being outside swinging the machete and that kind of stuff. He said, well, I won't tell you not to, but maybe the next week, lay off. After that, we'll see what it looks like next week. So now I have a doctor's excuse not to mess with that. Yay! I don't know if that's a yay or not. But, yeah, that's where things are falling right now. I did stop at the food bank on the way home, and this time they had Brussels sprouts. I have never cooked Brussels sprouts in my life. I like Brussels sprouts, but I've never cooked them. So I think I'm gonna, they had something on the back about roasting them, so I think I'm gonna look at that and roast those tonight. Then I'll have roasted Brussels sprouts for the rest of the week. I mean, it's a big package. So, and she'd asked me, because they had carrots this time, and I said, well, if you insist. I said, can you give me a small package? Smallest of all. So they did that, but other than that, I can crochet because lots of times don't really need to watch what I'm doing to crochet. A lot of what I do is feel for it, but I gotta tell you, it's kind of scary when you're looking at possibly losing your eyesight. And that is my biggest fear of all, losing my eyesight. And I think that's because before I had my cataract surgery, I was wearing those Coke bottle glasses. You know, it was to the point where I was wearing contacts at one point, but they really irritated my eyes. So, but I had dropped the contact in the sink, putting it in my eye. Couldn't find the contact, so I went to reach for my glasses one time. They fell off onto the floor and I could not find my glasses because I don't see well enough. So, I had to ask my boys to come in and help me find my glasses. Now, they were laughing at me. And I said, it's not funny. You have no idea how bad my eyesight is, So, yeah, like I said, that has always been my biggest fear of all, is losing my eyesight. So, now, I'm wondering if I can get, I don't know, some kind of compensation from PTSD from my insurance company from the broom handle. I don't think that's possible. But I do know I'll be opening up that broom closet door very differently from now on. So, and I would have never thought a broom handle hitting the eye would cause this much problem. And then while I was waiting in the waiting room to be seen, to be taken back, got a call from Terry of Nana's Crochet Ideas. And Terry is on her way, I think she said from New York to Delaware, and was coming through Pennsylvania and thought that she might stop in. We could meet up for a little bit. But somehow I think where I'm at is going to be out of the way for her. So I'm not sure. But I would have loved to have met her, So anyway, she is going to let me know if she's going to stop somewhere in between on the way, and see if it's close enough for me to meet up with her. That would be fun to be able to meet up with her. But yeah, and what I find funny is I was finding out that even with, because they didn't dilate this eye, I'd asked them, do we really have to dilate both eyes? I mean, we're just looking at the left eye, right? Of course, the specialist wants to look at both eyes. And I said to him, well, you can do that next week. This week I'm saying no. I've had enough trauma with the eyes. But your depth perception, when you cannot see well, goes out the window too. The gal had handed me the receipt and I went to grab it, reach for it, and I missed it 3 times. So that kind of makes me nervous about driving that much. So trying to keep my driving to a minimum, if at all. But it gives me a chance to work a little bit on this. I'm going to finish this row, and then I am going to change the color again. I think I'm going to add the brown. I did pick up in that bag with the other yarns, I picked up a burgundy color. I think the burgundy might work with this and the browns, but I'm not sure. We'll gonna put like I said, work this in and then start working with the brown. And it is Red Hearts Brown. It's not one of the cafe lattes or, one of the other colors. It is brown. Yeah, my friend told me that maybe I should train the cats to do the sweeping in the house. I could tie the broom to their tails. Well, I don't think that'll work. Then there's a part of me that goes, well, maybe I'll just use the pet vacuum cleaner from now on, so I don't have to worry about a handle flying out of the broom closet, hitting me in the eyeball. And sometimes you have to laugh about some of these injuries that we get as we get older. So, floaters I can deal with. But like I said yesterday afternoon, this was beginning to bother me a lot, especially since not only was it doing that, but I'm having some tearing up with a lot of this. And he did tell me that that's absolutely normal. And I did ask the specialist, about the whole thing with the colorblind on the one eye. I'd asked him, is that normal? He said, well, most people don't have that at all. He said, your right eye is good, so you're not colorblind. He said, normally when it's been determined that you're colorblind, it's because both eyes have that defect in them. So, but I did ask him because I was curious. Is it possible that it's been colorblind, the left eye, my entire life and just didn't know it? He said that's quite possible. He said also the color blindness may be because of the injury to the eye with the bleeding. But he said most likely that has been your lifelong trait in that left eye. And, not to worry about it. I said, I'm not. I'm just curious. Curious minds want to know. And he had said to me, well, because I'd said to him, he said something about it's very rare for women to have. I said, I know it is. I said, my late husband was colorblind. I said, he goes, well, that would mean that your daughter would have the trait. She might pass that on. I said, well, we didn't have any children together, so that's not a concern. But, the more you know, right? It's a good thing to know what's going on. And I was rereading some of the new parts of the things that the Senate changed, and the only thing that I can see that's really changed when it comes to SNAP benefits is instead of 7 years old, they're making it 14, under 14, that might have to work if they're able-bodied. But if you're listening to the Democrats that they're going to cut your SNAP benefits for 65 and anything over, and that somebody who has Alzheimer's in a nursing home is going to have to work, you're being lied to. Straight up, you're being lied to, and you need to quit listening to. And which is really sad, because what it shows is these Democrats that are spreading that BS, either they can't read or they haven't bothered to read the bill. They're letting their interns interpret what they think, and instead of reading the bill just point blank what it says. So that's why I say you need to read the bills if you're worried about it, instead of listening to the fear mongers. They both do it. I mean, when Democrats are in power and they have the full House and Senate and all that, then the Republicans do that fear mongering. I mean, they just do it because power hungry. So read the bill. Yes, it is 1,000 pages, but if you read the bill, your fears are going to be allayed. You're not going to have to worry about it. And like I said, some of the other stuff that I've been hearing is just blatant lies. It's come out. So be wary. Be wary. I had someone tell me, well, because a lot of folks each year are eligible to get food, veggie vouchers if you're 60 and older. Well, those are decreased because of Trump. No, those were decreased because of Biden. I mean, Trump's hasn't even gone into effect, wouldn't affect it until 2026 if it got passed next couple of weeks. So no, that has nothing to do with it. That had to do with the previous administration and the way that they cut SNAP benefits for people. And the USDA, the food agricultural portion where those veggie vouchers come out of. Farm to market. So it pays to understand, to know what's going on, those kind of things. And, just like this whole thing with the bodies, folks, that has been happening since 2021. So you're going to tell me Biden was responsible for dropping those migrant workers from Africa off in the deep waters between Africa and Spain? What? For the past 4 years? And now all of a sudden you think Trump's doing it? And from everything that I have read over the past 4 years about this, they believe that it is migrant workers that when they were on the ships being shipped, either they had a disagreement or possibly fell ill and died on the trip, so they dumped their bodies into the sea. And you kind of have to keep in mind that a lot of these migrants that were being brought over were sold into slavery, and they were being brought into Spain and to be moved out to different areas of the world as slave, either sex or working slaves, factories, mines, whatever. So that's why I say you can't listen to just the headlines that are on the news. Can't listen to some of the things that come out of these, news agencies, because they're just as guilty of lying about it. You have the undercover videos where CNN is bragging about taking out Trump out of the 2020 election. They think that they're behind the whole thing, being able to keep him out of office. So there's that. And I did find something interesting, was listening to Minnesota State I think that's where she's from. Elon Omar's, the representative. She is senator or representative. Can't remember which she is. But talk about a list of charges to be brought against her. My goodness. She's a crime wave all by herself, if they're true. And these are things that the state has investigated and found. You know, money laundering, fraud, election fraud, or campaign fraud. All kinds of things like that. So, you know, sometimes you get caught with your hand in the cookie jar. And you're going to have to pay for it. So, moved on to the brown. Do know I'll be doing quite a bit of crocheting. Just because it's my comfort measure. That's what it looks like so far. So, yeah, I just thought I would update you on the eye and, talk a little bit. I'll see you again tomorrow for what, whip and coffee, which will probably be water. I don't know, might be coffee. Anyway, I'll see you again tomorrow. Everybody have a great evening. And remember, even though the Democrats say that we're not allowed to celebrate 4th of July, happy 4th of July. Celebrate. Celebrate our freedoms. Celebrate the men and the women who died to give us those freedoms. All right, see you again tomorrow. Bye.